So this video just goes over the 3 different types of studies that we talked about as ways that you can collect data, and then also how you can find the statistics for that data and use it to talk more about it. So here all I did was I just took a screenshot right out of our notes of the definitions for the types of studies. So an observational study records the values of variables for members of a sample. So this is really just observing people. It's a key word here. They're not doing anything to them, you're not talking to them, giving them something, just observing. A survey is really a type of observational study, but this is more specific because you do ask people specific questions. And then finally, an experiment is when you actually assign subjects to treatments to see what effect the treatments have on some characteristics. So maybe you're breaking them into 2 different groups, giving one group a treatment and one not, and comparing. So you're doing something, you're manipulating the subjects in the experiment. So over here are just 3 examples, and we're just going to identify if it's a survey, an observational study, or an experiment. So this first one talks about students who are interested in knowing if the number of times they can sink a basketball is related to the color of the ball. So they shoot a series of baskets and record their success using a regulation colored ball, then they switch to a blue one and shoot the same series of baskets. A statistical analysis is performed. Okay, so this would be an experiment because they are actually giving people different colored balls and watching and seeing what happens. So they're not just watching people shoot, they're giving the one color and then giving another, so that's an experiment. So here's another one. It says a group of students wants to know if there's a correlation between attending an SAT prep course and the scores that they get on the SAT. So they track some students who took the class and some who didn't, and they record their SAT scores. A statistical analysis is performed. This would be an observational study because they're not doing anything. They're literally just watching kids and writing down what they see or what the students tell them about their scores and about whether or not they went to class. So this is an observational study. Finally, a group of students is interested in their classmates' preferences for lunch, so they stand outside the cafeteria and ask questions to every other student that walks in during the lunch periods. Okay, this, while still an observational study, specifically this is a survey. So they're asking a specific set of questions to students that come into the lunch period about a particular topic. So this would definitely be an example of a survey. Okay, so the next thing that we had talked about in class was how to get some statistics from data that you're given once it's been collected. So here's an example. You're given, this is called a frequency distribution. So this column just gives you all the different number of siblings that people in the study had, and then the frequency tells you how many of each there were. So this means there were 3 people, for example, who had 0 siblings. So that's what the 2 columns mean. So we're asked to find the mean, population standard deviation, median, and IQR for this data. So at this point, if you're following along, you'd want to go ahead and put this data in your calculator. So number of siblings will go in L1, and frequency will go in L2. So I'll give you a second to do that. If you've forgotten to get to where you can enter data, you're going to press Stat, Edit, and then if you have any data already in your lists, for example, you would go up till your calculator is highlighting L1, press Clear, Enter, and it's going to clear all the data in there, and then you can go ahead and enter new data. Okay, once you've entered the data into your lists, at this point, if you've forgotten, you're going to go ahead and press Stat again. You're going to go over to the Calc menu, that stands for Calculate, and you want choice 1 var stats, and then you do need to tell your calculator that your data is in both L1 and L2. So if you press second 1, you're going to get L1 to come up on the screen, then you need to press the comma button, which is above the 7, and then second 2 will give you L2. So then if you press Enter, you should see the screen that I've actually screenshotted and put at the bottom of this screen. So the first display that you should see is this picture on the left. Your mean is this guy right here. We call that X bar. So since it said we're rounding to the 100th if necessary, well, actually we don't need to. This is just 1.8. Then it asks for the population standard deviation. That is that fancy looking O. So this one does need to be rounded to the 100th. That would be 1.21. You don't need to write the X. You can if you want. That's just something the calculator does. Then they want the median. So what I did, when you can see at the bottom, it says n equals 20. I kept scrolling until I saw all the rest of the numbers. So then you should see MED. That's the median. There's no symbol for median. And then finally it asks for the IQR. That it's not going to give you right off the bat, but it does give you enough information. I've kind of covered it, but if you can see, it says that Q1 is 1 and Q3 is 2.5. So to find my IQR, you take Q3 and you subtract Q1. So in our case, that's 2.5 minus 1. So my IQR is 1.5. So those are the most standard statistics that I might be asked for. So then this question is another one that you see a lot. It says, how many students are within 1 standard deviation of the mean. So what that really means is that if you took your mean, 1.8, and you added a standard deviation to it and subtracted a standard deviation from it, you're going to come up with a range. So I'm going to throw these in my calculator. 1.8 plus 1.21 gives me 3.01. And if I subtract, I get 0.59. So what this really means is any sibling number that's in between these, obviously they're not going to be decimals. So since our lowest is 0.59, that means we cannot include 0. So the 0 is out. 1 is between, so that one works. 2 is between, and so is 3. Since it's 3.01, 3 is included. So I'm going to take those 3 frequencies and add them up. And that gives me 16 students that are within 1 standard deviation of the mean.